This month on CCTU, top industry and government leaders join us to talk about the key state policies they think are needed to support the clean transportation industry and speed the shift to zero emissions.
We'll also give you an exclusive recap of CalStart's 2022 California Policy Summit.
Register for our broadcast on our website and tune in on Tuesday, February 22nd at 11 a.m. Pacific to hear more.
And we will CCTU soon.
Well, hello, everybody. It's great to be back and to CCTU now with our newest edition of the Clean Commercial Transportation Update. As always, I'm Bill Van Amberg, and I'm so happy to be back again with my great partner and colleague, Alicia Gildy.
Hi, Bill. I'm excited to be back here with you and all of our friends at CCTU for our CCTU Tuesday, the latest edition of our 30-minute broadcast. Here at CalStart, we know that clean transportation is the way of the future. This month, we focus on innovative policy actions coming out of California.
Yeah, and it's the focus is California because it is leading the way on some of the most aggressive air quality standards, climate emission reduction goals in the nation, and innovative policies, including purchase incentives, infrastructure investments, clean fuel standards. But there's still a lot more to be done. The time for zero emissions really is now, and a suite of policies are needed to get it done.
That's right, Bill. And to help us with today's discussion, we are fortunate to be joined by Hector de la Torre, who is a board member with the California Air Resources Board, and Jonathan Miller, Senior Vice President of Volvo Group North America. We will also give you an inside look into the forward-thinking solutions that came out of CalStart's recent 2022 California Policy Summit, as well as context around big industry announcements on implementation, deployment, and prominent collaborations. Yes, Bill, we are finally moving past discussions of intentions and are seeing ambitions turn into reality.
It's now time to walk the talk, and it is starting to happen. So a lot to discuss on our program today, Alicia, so let's get right to it. I think we have a poll to start us off as always.
We do, and I love our polls. All right, so everyone, a question for you. What is the biggest signal that the zero emission transformation is underway? Here are the options. Number one, major truck makers are ramping up production and support. Number two, the petroleum industry is investing in zero emission infrastructure. Number three, private investment overall is increasing in zero emission infrastructure and corridors. And lastly, public funding is ramping up for zero emission technology and infrastructure. This is a pretty good question we have for everyone, Bill. There's a couple I would select.
You know, as usual with our polls, you could probably pick every one of them. I think it's fascinating that we're really seeing the legacy or the traditional truck makers ramp up, but I do think this private investment in infrastructure is a huge signal.
Yeah, I'm loving what I'm seeing with this commitment to corridors, especially, which is great. All right, let's see what the results are coming in, Max. All right, wow, okay. First option here, major truck makers are ramping up productions and sales, I would say, followed by a tie with private investment, committing to zero emission infrastructure and public funding for vehicles and infrastructure. All right, well, great responses, everyone. Thank you so much for your participation.
So I think before we get into the news, we want to thank a couple of our sponsors who help support the California Policy Summit, Alicia.
That's right. Well, and many thanks to Southern California Edison, one of CalStart's members and a top sponsor at a recent California Policy Summit, for being a big supporter of CalStart and CCTU. SCE is an important utility partner in advancing a zero-emission transportation future, and we couldn't be more privileged to have the opportunity to work with them. Also, later in our broadcast, we want to feature 3 videos featuring 3 sponsors that also contributed to our Policy Summit. So more on that soon.
Great. So for now, let's move right into the news and the stories behind the news. Recently, there's been a lot of important news surrounding infrastructure, collaborations, funding, technology. Big investments are what we're talking about that are leveraging implementation and deployment, real action. So we've got 3 big takeaways this month. This first one, zero emission trucks are coming, and they're coming big. CalStart just recently released a report that starts to quantify this. It's called Zeroing In on Zero Emission Trucks, or ZETs. And that report really signals that there is a significant growth underway in ZETs. It's the first really good inventory of those trucks and commercial vehicles on the road, and a sign of future demand. The report indicates there are several breakout markets coming, and one of those is for delivery class vans.
That's a big breakout area, Bill. Besides Rivian and its big 100,000 truck order from Amazon, Ford is starting to produce its e-Transit, says it has 10,000 orders in place already, and GM is producing and delivering its BrightDrop EV trucks.
Now, added on top of that, Volvo has unveiled a longer range version of its VNR electric Class 8, which is really an exciting new capability. And we're going to hear more about that later in the broadcast today. So our first takeaway, delivery van volumes are finally ramping up, and we're seeing heavy duty coming right behind. The vanguard of a huge growth in zero-emission trucks underway. Alicia, what's our second big takeaway?
Well, the future of long-haul zero-emission truck is already here. We know we need to support the infrastructure to make it a reality, and I think funding is going to be a big part of it. Well, the next takeaway is funding for this critical transformation is not slowing down. And last year, we reported on the big dollars California Governor Newsom put forward to advance zero-emission vehicles and infrastructure. And guess what? This year, the governor put forward an even bigger budget.
Well, it is huge, Alicia. The governor's proposing continued amounts for zero-emission trucks, buses, equipment, infrastructure incentives. Nearly $3 billion is what he's proposing in the budget for those categories. And a couple of carve-out categories of focus: drayage trucks and infrastructure, almost $500 million. School buses and infrastructure, $1.5 billion. Transit buses, again, another $500 million. So that's a lot of funding from the state of California.
And nationally, we're seeing dollars come out of the federal government, made possible by the bipartisan infrastructure law. On February 10th, the U.S. Department of Transportation and the Department of Energy announced $5 billion over 5 years to build a national EV charging network. The funding program will help states deploy electric charging along designated alternative fuel corridors. The amount of funding for this fiscal year is $615 million, and states will need to submit their funding plans to the federal government before funds can be dispersed. Additional infrastructure funding will be made available through a competitive grant program, and we'll make sure to get that information to you as it will be announced later this year. So our second takeaway, the funding throttle is wide open for the next 1 to 2 years, and now is the time to take action on zero-emission deployment. Bill, what's our third takeaway?
Well, building off of that, we've seen big dollars coming from the federal government, the state governments. Now is the time to implement. And our third big takeaway is investors are getting serious on infrastructure. A couple of big announcements: BlackRock, Daimler, and NextEra Energy announced a charging and infrastructure collaborative. They're investing $600 million in planning and installing a national charging and hydrogen refueling network. They're looking at corridors on the East and West Coast and in Texas, and they plan to spend their money by 2026. So this is fast tracked. Also, we're seeing infrastructure production ramping up. Tritium joined with the Biden administration in announcing a new manufacturing facility in Tennessee for DC fast chargers, where they'll have more than 500 jobs and can produce up to 10,000 fast charger units per year, Alicia.
I know, that's incredible. Exciting news there, Bill. Well, there's another big announcement for ABB, one of the world's biggest manufacturers of charging infrastructure and powertrains, has upped its investment stake in InCharge, a California-based infrastructure installation firm, and a partner to Navistar Next. This all comes on the heels of British Petroleum buying a California-based Amply Power, an infrastructure financing provider, and Shell buying Greenlots, an innovative charging solution provider. Big Oil is taking big steps towards zero-emission energy offerings, Bill.
So it's really interesting, all the partners who are starting to come together. It's all part of that big lift it's going to take to move forward and keep pace with the zero-emission trucks that manufacturers can build. We need to get charging and fueling infrastructure in the ground to keep up. So our third big takeaway there is the big players see where they need to invest and are finally going all in on all electric. Alicia, you want to sum up our big three takeaways for the month?
I would be happy to. Well, number one, the growth curve is accelerating for zero-emission commercial vehicles with delivery and long-haul trucks as the next big breakouts. There is multi-year flow of funding coming for zero-emission commercial vehicles and infrastructure coming from public agencies. And big players are putting in big dollars to positioning themselves for providing needed infrastructure for this surge of zero-emission vehicles.
So that's the news behind the news and the trends that we see. And speaking of all these exciting innovations with commercial EV deployment, let's hear now a brief word from Nikola Motors, another sponsor of our recent summit and one of CalStart's members.
Heavy commercial transportation is one of the biggest emitters of carbon on the planet. We need to be able to move heavy things long distances without polluting the planet. So we decided to do something about it.
What's fascinating is that we have a very diverse group of individuals. We need that diversity because problems that we're trying to solve is incredibly complex. We are decarbonizing the world. And when I think about that vision, that gets me excited.
We need a different way to power our lives. Nikola's got a vision for solving that challenge.
We combine the transportation and the energy piece together. We have an integrated solution for customers. There's only one way to move, and that's forward. The industry needs these solutions. We're working hard and we're working with urgency. So the journey is only at the beginning.
Very exciting to hear that progress that's being made, and very fitting as an introduction to our next guest. We'll be joined by Hector de la Torre, Assembly appointed member of the California Air Resources Board, former member of the California State Assembly. Hector, thank you for taking out time from your day to join us for this segment. Great to have you here with us.
Thanks, Bill. It's great to be here.
Well, Hector, you were one of the key architects of Project 800 and its work to speed the deployment of zero-emission drayage trucks. Can you give us a sense of how this groundbreaking project is proceeding and what comes next? How do we get to thousands of zero-emission drayage trucks?
Well, I'm excited that we did Project 800 because we had to just, get a target and get out there. We fell a little short. We had 720 zero emission trucks we called it Project 800, but we wanted to go as big as we could. We did 720. We're going to be more aggressive this year going forward, but I'm really, really proud of CARB and CalStart for helping us to make that happen because, it's time. 2, 3, 4 years ago, we couldn't say we could do something like Project 800 because the trucks weren't available. Now we can, and we are being very aggressive. You highlighted the budget numbers from the governor from last year, and then also this year, an increased amount. By my count, about $1.5 billion, and that doesn't include infrastructure.
Yeah, it is really an all-in strategy from California, and I know California is trying to influence the rest of the nation this way. As you look over the route ahead and the results that we need to reach and those next plateaus we've got to get to, what do you think needs to be pushed hard next in getting zero emission freight and trucks to scale? What's kind of the next big campaign effort in your mind?
Well, within California, it's certainly our advanced clean fleet rule, which we're going to be working on this summer or having hearings on this summer. But it's also outside of California. You highlighted the federal efforts. We need other states. We need the federal government. We need the private sector to step up. Obviously, we need the infrastructure. So California can't go it alone. If we're going to make this market, it has to be a national initiative. And that's why I'm so happy that we have these international companies that are stepping up. Volvo, who's going to be on in a bit. We also have Toyota, Hino, and Hyundai in the fuel cell sector. So Daimler in the electric sector, in the battery electric sector. So all of that international push, I think, helps us. But here within the United States, California is carrying most of the load.
Hector, it was so wonderful to have you join us for our California Policy Summit. And thank you so much for your leadership in the discussion as we were talking about how we need to advance these investments for infrastructure and for vehicles. And you talked about the need of infrastructure, and I really appreciated your remarks around promoting equity to ensure community benefit. So what keeps you up at night on making all of these products? What progress and what additional tools on regulatory, policy, financial, what needs to go in California's toolbox to fill the gaps to meet our 2030 goals and beyond?
Well, as I always say, the motivator for me in being in this sector, and goods movement is like my major at CARB, is that diesel is harmful. It is about 8% of the greenhouse gases in California, but it's over 70% of the excuse me, the carcinogenic effect of air pollution. Over 70%. So if you're in a transit corridor like I am in Southern California, near the ports, near the freeways, near the warehouses, you are breathing this in, and it is harmful to you, in addition to the climate impact. So that is why I openly talk about killing diesel. We have to kill diesel and transition to zero emission heavy duty trucks. How are we going to do that? We have to partner with the community, starting with the communities that are most impacted. We have to partner with labor. We have to partner with large hubs, the ports, the warehouse districts, the rail yards. We have to combine our efforts along these corridors. It's not rocket science. It's not like we're having to cover the entire state. We know where the trucks are coming from and where they're going to. So we need to work on those communities first. And then in terms of challenges, it's all of the above. It is the incentives. It's the regulatory package. We are being very aggressive at CARB on our regulatory efforts. We had just on January 1st, the first smog check for heavy duty trucks. That will be a push for these vehicles to move on. We also have the Advanced Clean Truck Rule, which we did last year. We have the Advanced Clean Fleet Rule, which I mentioned, which we'll be working on later this year. And we have a number of other regulatory pushes that are coming along this year, next year, and beyond. So we are going to continue to do this. And guess what? The one way you can avoid all of these regulations is by going zero. If you want CARB off your back, go to zero, because we don't regulate zero. And so that is one of my added bonuses that I'd like to offer people is get us out of your way by going to zero.
When you look at what it will take to do that, and you're seeing the momentum, and you've had a big hand in growing that momentum, what other things do you think are needed in our tool chest? I mean, there could be more work with the utilities to move faster on interconnect. I hear from a lot of communities, and Alicia alluded to the equity issues. They would like to be zero emission zones now. They're tired of waiting, and they don't even think 617 has helped them as much as they would like. Do you have any thoughts on what we could be doing to be even more aggressive to give people the tools they want?
First of all, on 617, and I'm constantly reminding them, we're only about 2 years in to the communities that have CERPs. So, Rome wasn't built in a day. We have made incredible progress on the enforcement side in 617 communities. We've made impressive progress on pesticide regulations in rural areas. So we're getting there, and we are targeting those communities for funds. In terms of additional pieces that could move the needle, differential registration is something that we are looking at.
What do you mean by that? What does that mean?
You'd pay less for a zero emission registration for a truck than for a combustion vehicle. Indirect source rules. South Coast Air Quality Management District passed an indirect source rule for warehouses and other source locations. We may be looking at doing the same thing statewide. And these ideas that I'm throwing out are possibilities. We're not working on them actively right now, but they are possibilities, and we are talking about including them in our next state implementation plan, which we're going to talk about on Thursday. So this is right hot off the presses. The other is something that I'm very interested in, is a useful life regulation where the trucks, combustion trucks, were given a useful life time period of 18 years under SB1, the gas tax measure from a few years ago. If that's the time that they were given, then I see no reason why in the 19th year that truck can't be taken off the road. And that would be another push factor to move to zero. Again, zero gives you regulatory certainty, right? You don't have to upgrade a few years down the road. You don't have to worry that CARB is going to regulate to increase the emissions reductions or decrease emissions reductions. Zero gets you there and gets us off your backs. So that is another push factor. So I think we have to consider all of these push factors at the same time that we're incentivizing and supporting the pull factors to get to zero.
That is, those are great insights, and I'm glad we were able to get in a couple of those last concepts. I think this differential registration is really something that would resonate with people. The indirect source rule is looking like a powerful tool. So we will continue to work with you on these. Thank you so much, and thank you for joining us here today, Hector.
Absolutely. Love talking about this stuff. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you. Well, before we move on to our next segment and our second guest, we would like to hear from an additional sponsor of our policy summit and another CalSTART member, Watt EV.
Wow, that was pretty cool, Bill.
It was.
Well, for our next member highlight, we will be joined by Jonathan Miller, Senior Vice President of Public Affairs for Volvo Group North America. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for joining us today. We are excited to get into this discussion with you.
Pleasure to be here with you today.
Hey, first, Jonathan, we're so delighted that Volvo has become an official pledge partner of the Global Commercial Vehicle Drive to Zero program, which is committed to a rapid transformation and working together to achieve that for zero emission technology. Let me ask you just first, we were so excited to have Volvo, who is one of the big global players in commercial vehicles, join. Why do you believe taking part in Drive to Zero at Volvo is important?
Thanks, Bill. The pledge to accelerate zero-emission vehicles aligns with our own commitment to environmental sustainability, including targeting global net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2040, as well as 35% of our global vehicle sales to be fully electric by 2035.
Which is a significant number. And so from Volvo's perspective, joining with others to actually work together to put in place the right tools to make that happen was important. You think this signal of Drive to Zero helps send that out?
Absolutely. We need to change the whole transportation system for this paradigm shift, and we need to work in partnership to make it happen if we're going to stay within the Paris Accord goals.
Well, and Jonathan, Volvo has a range of zero emission trucks and bus products in Europe and in the US, and your Class 7 and 8 electric VNR has been a standout for regional distribution and drayage. Now it has a significant upgrade. What are the new capabilities?
Yeah, it's very exciting for us. The enhanced Volvo VNR Electric's true power lies in the improvements made in the battery, technology, design, management, and package offering. Improvements in the battery design results in an up to 40% increase in storage capacity for each battery. Volvo Trucks has also introduced a new 6 battery package option. Combining these boasts an increased energy storage of up to 565 kilowatt hours and offers an operational range of up to 275 miles, which is about an 85% improvement over our current product. Enhanced Volvo VNR Electric also reduces the required charging time as the 250 kilowatt charging capability provides an 80% charge in 90 minutes for the 6 battery package and 60 minutes for the 4 battery version. We've also added 2 new configurations to the Volvo VNR electric lineup, a 6x4 straight truck and a 6x4 tractor, which join our existing models of 4x2 tractor, 6x2 tractor, and a single axle straight truck. Each Volvo VNR electric configuration is designed for applications and drive cycles with local and regional distribution ranges, including food and beverage, drayage, and pickup and delivery routes.
You're really starting to build a full range of capabilities, a family, if you will, of these vehicles, which is really, really exciting. You've also shared, or Volvo has, that it's moving its zero-emission trucks into full production capability, and you can really scale its volumes now significantly as demand goes up. That being the case, what state and federal policies would you most like to see to help you speed this deployment? What tools do you need?
Thanks, Bill. I think the most critical are in the areas of greater financial support, both for vehicle incentives to lower that initial purchase price, and then on the charging and refueling infrastructure. We don't have a whole lot of that in the heavy duty space yet, and we need to start scaling that up. Other policies that will help smooth the integration of these vehicles into fleets by reducing the cost of ownership include things like low carbon fuel standard, state tax holidays, easing the transition for fleets, for example, facilitating permitting, coordinating the funding for vehicles and the infrastructure together. Those are some of the ideas that we think will help us speed this transition even faster.
That's great. And Jonathan, just real quick before we move on, you were talking about the battery advancements. With this evolution, can we expect to see a steady product improvements for zero-emission trucks over the next decade?
Yes, I think we can, Alicia. Battery technology is going to continue to improve over the years, but it's not just the improved technology, but the better and broader application of that technology to other applications. Zero-emission vehicles are not just battery electric vehicles. We're also going to be bringing hydrogen fuel cells for long-haul applications. And we also anticipate continued improvements in renewable fuels that we can still help provide ZEVs to all applications with the technology that most effectively and efficiently allows us to get us there.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for sharing your insight with us. We appreciate the innovative technology Volvo has brought to the industry. Speaking of this innovation, Jonathan, we have a little video that we want to show that we featured at our policy summit. Let's go ahead and play that.
Well, Alicia and I have admitted in the past that we are real nerds and we rock out to these videos of heavy duty commercial Zets, but that's very cool. Thank you, Jonathan, so much for joining us today and giving us these insights from Volvo's perspective.
You're most welcome. Thank you.
Well, we want to thank Hector de la Torre as well, our other guest today, and thank all of you for joining us. So there's important policy discussions around California's state policies and how they can help seed what's going on in the nation and in the world. CalSTART team obviously is going to be really working hard, advocating for legislation and budget that is necessary to achieve California's ambitious climate and zero-emission technology goals. Join us for that push. Help us do it to grow the zero-emission commercial vehicle market and make cleaner, healthier communities as a result. But for now, that's it for our broadcast this month. Thank you for making Tuesday your new CCTU day, CCTU Tuesdays. As always, I'm Bill Van Amberg.
And I'm Alicia Gildy. And as we close today, we do want to take a moment to thank our wonderful creative team that is making CCTU possible. Many thanks to our executive producers, Jennifer Manfrey and Whitley Porter. Amir Sharik is our graphic designer. Max Lemieux is running our controls as always. And Carly Magnan is managing our chat and is also a wonderful helper with our production. We look forward to seeing you at our next episode of CCTU on Tuesday, March 29th. There are big announcements coming up next month. Tune in to hear the latest demand for California's hybrid and zero emission truck voucher incentive project and its next funding round of $500 million when it opens up the doors for vouchers at the end of the month. You don't want to miss it, and we want to make sure that you're here with us. So until then, make sure you stay connected with us by following us on Twitter at CalStart and register for our live broadcast on our website. And
we will CCTU soon.